Good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening as we open up the 63rd regular session of this administration. We're going to have the invocation given by Councilmember Kristen Elshire, and the pledge of the flag will be led by Cub Scout Pack 103 from Paramount Elementary, and Aiden McCall and Gabe Cassessa. If you two guys can come up front, I'd appreciate it. Either one of you in fourth grade?
I wasn't a Boy Scout, but I was a Boy Scout.
Oh, okay. So I didn't get to see you. That was out of Paramount this morning. Yeah. All right. So if you please stand and join us. And Mr. Elshire, hang on, guys. Mr. Elshire will do the invocation first, and then we'll do the pledge, okay?
May we be thankful for the day that you have given us, for its blessings, its opportunities, its challenges. May we appreciate and use each day that comes to us. We pray for strength and guidance for each day as it comes, for each day's duties, for each day's problems. May we be challenged to give our best always. May we be assured of your presence with us.
All right, that's good. Thank you guys very much. Some quick announcements. We're operating under the rules of procedure adopted by this administration on December 20th of 2016. If you have a cell phone, please mute it, which I'm trying to do. All correspondence and distribution to elected officials should be provided to the city clerk and should include a copy for the city clerk for inclusion in the official record. Meeting dates in February are February 5th, 12th, and 19th are all work sessions at 4 p.m. And February 26th is a regular session at 7 p.m. Do not forget that Tuesday, February 5th is the state of the county, and all are welcome. Appointments this evening, we have a couple. We have appointments to the Historic District Commission, Robert E. Powell. If I could get a motion, please, Lou.
So moved, Mr. Mayor, for Mr. Powell for a term to expire July 23, 2020, Historic District Commission.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. The Community Development Block Grant Public Service Review Committee.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move to appoint to the Community Development Block Grant Public Service Review Committee Howard Bowers, Kathleen O'Connell, Reverend Katie O'Hearn, all of their terms to expire on January 28, 2020.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Board of Zoning Appeals.
Move Board of Zoning Appeals appointment of James Stauffer Jr. for a term to expire January 31, 2022.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We'd also like to welcome this evening Troop 26, St. Mark's Lutheran Church, Jonathan Fox, Dave Fox, Dylan Elliott, Matt Elliott, Joseph Fox, and John Kaufman, who's a Scoutmaster, and Braden Foster. You guys will stand up, be recognized. Thank you for joining us this evening. All right, we'll open up the floor to citizen comments. Now, this is not on the public hearing, this is just citizen comments. Andy Wyatt, 13 East Washington Street, Hagerstown, Maryland.
Hi, thank you very much for having me, Mayor and Council. I'm sorry to say that it's been a month since we made our last concession. WDVM made their last concession to Antietam, and unfortunately, we're still waiting for a counteroffer. I'd like to clarify a few rumors too, if I may. Clearly, there's a rapidly changing media landscape in Washington County, and for weeks, Antietam Cable has been making claims that WDVM Channel 25 was for sale and had an uncertain future. And as I've said before, WDVM is not for sale. We're not going to be for sale, and Nexstar Media will continue to own and operate the TV station here in Hagerstown. So suddenly, yesterday, Antietam's parent company, Schurz, announced that they're pulling back their commitment, selling the Herald Mail, and the layoffs have already begun. While Antietam's presence is changing, 25 is alive, and will remain committed to Washington County. Antietam is no stranger to dropping news channels. Over the last, just about a year ago, on January 1st, 2018, Antietam had a dispute with WMAR-TV, another Maryland news station, and WMAR had been carried on the system for years, but Antietam walked from them permanently. On Antietam's website, you'll see the reasoning they provided, which sounds familiar: programming fees and fighting against excessive network fees and increases. However, exactly 2 months after that, Antietam, on March 1st, 2018, they added what they call a broadcast TV fee, which is $4.88 added to every customer's bill. And fast forward another 10 months, and WDVM was removed from their system, and they refused to even negotiate with us in good faith. And that makes 2 broadcast channels removed while they collect a monthly fee of almost $5 from for the broadcast TV channels. While negotiations are confidential, I can assure you that we are asking for less than what Antietam is already paying to the Washington, D.C. news stations who never cover local news in Hagerstown. One of Antietam's solutions is to direct customers to the high bandwidth local video that we provide on our website, localdvm.com. And in doing so, they're encouraging customers to use more internet bandwidth, which leads to data caps and data overages and extra charges. And they still collect the $5 per month in broadcast fees. Just one more way where Antietam gets into the wallets of the local citizens. As the channels provided goes down and the rates go up, the city continues to get a percentage of Antietam's charges. When the fees charged by Antietam go up, so do the franchise fee the city collects. If you haven't checked your cable bill in a while, you know, if you print it right above here, right above this dotted line on your cable bill, it says Franchising Authority, City of Hagerstown, Mayor, has a FCC ID number and a phone number, and that number is the number to City Hall, Hagerstown City Hall. Antietam prints that right on every single cable bill that they send to every customer. And while the city has publicly stated they do not want to get involved in this business situation, the city is very much involved in it, and that's okay. That's fine. Government gets involved in business deals all the time. The government, President Trump, is very proud of himself for helping broker automotive manufacturers staying in our country and not shipping jobs out of the country. That's fine. At the end of the day, this is greater than a TV station, and it's greater than just a cable system, right? This is about a great community and making our community better. While Antietam has a bad track record of negotiating with TV stations, even I can acknowledge that they do make contributions to local charities, they support the Chamber of Commerce, they sponsor events, and they provide jobs, exactly the same way WDVM does. For 49 years, Channel 25 has kept the community informed, we've made it safer, employed people right in downtown, and we even provide news coverage of events that Antietam Cable sponsors. We're better when we're all working together. If Antietam is not talking to us, the whole community is losing. I'm not asking you to take a side other than the side of the community. I'm not asking you to negotiate a deal for us, but for the good of the city, I'm asking that you encourage Antietam to return to negotiating with us. If Channel 25 and Antietam work together with your help, imagine what we could do to the Barbara Ingram School or the Maryland Theater or the Commission on Aging, the United Way, or economic development, or any other important cause if we work together. I leave you with this. If a business came to you promising 20 or 75 jobs and promised to locate in an old building downtown, and these jobs included well-paid executives, department heads, and very specialized technical people, if they promised millions of dollars in payroll and benefits and promised to spend millions of dollars with local businesses, if it was a clean business and didn't have a bad impact on the environment, and if they were owned by a stable leader in their industry, if that company provided one-of-a-kind service to people from Washington County all the way to Washington, D.C., and from Annapolis to Northern Maryland, and all points in between, would you want that company headquartered here in Hagerstown? Would you be willing to support it? And would you be willing to make one phone call and use your influence to get another local business to jump on board to make it happen for our city?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Crane? I didn't say this to Andy, but if you could limit your comments to 5 minutes, that'd be great. I don't cut anybody off, but I just ask you to be conscientious to other people who want to speak to.
Let me see if I can do it in 5 minutes. I did a 5-minute program for all those years. Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you briefly. You know, with all the things that have been going on, I've been thinking about the media here. And my thoughts went back to 1991. What were you doing in 1991? I was working as a reporter for Channel 60 in Martinsburg. And in 1991, I actually was assigned to cover the State of the City address here. That was Mayor Steve Sager. And he was giving the report on the state of the city. And he noted, in fact, he stopped in the middle of his presentation and noted there were 3 television stations there. Channel 60, Channel 25, and Channel 68. Well, a few years later, Channel 60 suspended its news operation. And then a few years after that, Channel 68 stopped doing news. And then on December 31st of 2018, Hagerstown residents who have Antietam Cable lost their last local news station. Our station's still doing news. We do it every day. Some say we're not, but I know we do. I see the story count every day. In fact, I've seen the story count every day for the past 25 years. We're covering Hagerstown. I've seen us cover the victories and celebrations, high school sports, weather for Hagerstown, from a Hagerstown icon, Lou Scally. And thanks to the city council, he has a street named after him. Well, it's an alley, but nonetheless, notable people have a notable honor. People like Washington, Franklin, and Jonathan Hager. I didn't know any of them, but I know Lou Scally, and he's all about our community, and the community misses seeing him. We publicize things like the Arts and Entertainment District, and we were at the first August Oktoberfest, and we've been at the most recent one. We are a major megaphone, a promotional vehicle, and publicity agent for the city of Hagerstown. We've seen tragedies too. I host a public affairs program, and if you've missed it in the last month, some of the guests included the Maryland Theater, Reach of Washington County, Boys and Girls Club of Washington County, and the Washington County delegation in preparation for the Maryland General Assembly. Now, Antietam Cable claims in the newspaper that their customers are not bothered by the loss of a local TV station. But I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people. What are they saying to me? Generally, they come up and they say, hey, Mark, when are you going to be back on cable? We miss you and Lou. Just today, I spoke with Jack Myers. You know Jack Myers, right? 95-year-old veteran of World War II. The first thing Jack said to me was, Mark, I pray to God you get back on the cable. Where else are we going to get our news? They need to do this. Now, perhaps the cable company isn't listening to their customers, or perhaps they already had a business plan that didn't include us. But really, what is the future of local news? A year and a half ago, the Herald Mail suspended their cable news, and I hired 3 of their people. As a matter of fact, in 2017, I hired 28 people. We've grown and we've expanded. We can make some improvements. If you see something you'd like us to change, let me know. You know you can come to my office anytime. You can call me, or let's grab lunch. Yeah, I eat lunch in downtown Hagerstown every day. As a matter of fact, I figured out I'm a major contributor to downtown business. See, $10 a day for lunch for 5 days a week for 25 years is $65,000. I didn't know I'd spent that much. But anyway, that's what I've been contributing. And there's 75 of us at the station there. So am I concerned that Antietam Cable subscribers can't see our product anymore? Yes. I have 35 years invested as a news journalist locally here, 25 of those at 25. I can ask, but I can't quite seem to get either side back to the negotiation table. So maybe you as elected officials and persons of authority, as individuals in whom the voters have placed their confidence, to look out for their interests, can convince the two sides to do this. Do it for Jack Myers. Do it for the community that you and I love.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The famous Lou Scout.
So I'm assuming, Lou, as long as you're not on Antietam Cable, you'll come every Tuesday night for a weather forecast for us?
Sure, no problem. I'll be glad to do it for you, Louis. Welcome, and thank you so much for having me. Unlike all the rest of these guys from the TV station, they're great guys, but they don't live in the city of Hagerstown. I am a proud taxpayer here in the city of Hagerstown. I live at 1318 Oak Hill Avenue, been there almost 29 years, and I am so proud to pay my taxes to the city of Hagerstown, and because I think you all doing a great job. Thank you so much. And I like the new paint job in here. Haven't been down here for a while. Again, as a proud taxpayer, I could be telling you that there's so many great things that happen in the city, and I think the TV station is one of those things. Those of you who are in the political arena, who have a story to be told occasionally, know that sometimes a deaf ear is turned toward what you think is important. And one of the most important quotes in the world of broadcasting and journalism, print journalism, is that information is the hallmark of democracy. Without a flow of information from several sources, you are confined to one company's point of view. Now, obviously, they say they don't control things like that, but at the end of the day, different companies have different ways of doing different things. My request to you is that you look into this issue. Try to convince Antietam Cable to come back to the bargaining table, see if we can put a deal together, and that's all we're asking. We want fair and equitable, and then if we need to get an arbitrator or anybody else involved, I'm sure that Andy is looking into that aspect also. But again, town this size, we are growing. We got big projects going on in City Center, Hagerstown. We got lots of growth happening here. We got happy homeowners. We're identifying our problems, but we need more than one media company in this town. We need several points of view. Again, at the end of the day, when you need to access your community, you have more avenues than we've had in the past years. We have our own closed circuit here with the city channels. We have radio, which I'm a part of also. But having a full-time television station is very important, I think, to presenting the stories of the city, whether it's the downtown festivals or whether it's the growth of the South Potomac Street Arts and Entertainment District, or unfortunately attacking the drug problem here that we have in the city of Hagerstown. With that being said, please give this some consideration. I am, again, just part of the rabble that works out there in the streets of Hagerstown every day, putting in my time, and hoping that this town is going to be a better place for my children and grandchildren. Please take the time to review this situation and help us out to get this put together, because I really believe that this town needs more than just one media company. Thank you very much. You're doing a great job. Love your paint job. See you all later.
Thank you, Lou.
Thanks, Lou.
Patrick Produm.
Patrick Prudhomme, 136 North Mulberry. Wanted to start out by congratulating you on the Barbara Ingman School. I'm very excited about seeing what's going to go on with it. I think it's very interesting. I know you worked on it for years. I'm glad to see it, finally coming around. Haven't been doing nothing myself since I saw you last. I've been cleaning 7 blocks in my area in the Northeast of weeds and garbage. I've been spraying all summer long. Once a week, I'm out there for 2.5 hours. I clean up all the garbage, beer cans, soda can bottles, sheets, McDonald's cups, wrappers, foods, household trash from overflowing trash cans, cigarette butts and packages, liquor bottles, bullets, small homemade baggies for drugs, needles, used condoms, and used Kotex. Those are just a few of the things I get to pick up every day. So, just want to say, we don't have anybody cleaning our street. We have one person that comes through once a week with a machine, big truck, They move the cars. If your car isn't moved, you get a $15 fine, and they come through on that, and I don't know when they do the other side. We have streets in our neighborhood that they do at will. I could grow sod in the silt that's on that street. Now, let's see. I did want to know about the city manager. I know that it's already, handled, but I wanted to know, she left 4 months early. Did we pay the $45,000 on her salary that was left? And did we pay the $56,000, the 5-month severance pay, because we didn't renew her contract? I really would like to know that. I'd actually like to know more about why she left, because in the newspaper you said it was because she had, that you were going in a different direction. But my understanding is that a city manager's role is to take direction from you and implement it. What possibly was it that she didn't want to implement? So then I want to let you know that along with cleaning up my neighborhood, I do ask occasionally for some help with some things that I'm worried about. We have a vacant building on our street, so I called the city. Danny in the mayor's office was wonderful. She had Emily McFarland call me, and she came out within about 2 weeks, I think it was, and she put up a violation notice. But I did ask her, why is it that you didn't violate them for not having the back door lit? Because the street light doesn't light it. Since then, we had a problem with a drug house. We all got together. I think we worked hard for 16 weeks. We got it taken care of. But the glass door on the back was knocked in. Somebody was trying to get into it. Emily told me that that code is only enforceable if the landlord wants to turn on the electric and wants to put a light in back of their property. I also asked her could she get into the building, because the building's been leaking for about 10 years now, and I know that it has mold in the basement, and pretty scary mold. And I'm worried that if moisture is getting into the building, our mold spores getting out. We have lots and lots of children on our street. And she told me she couldn't get into the building. And I asked her 3 times, I said, you mean you can't get into the building at all? There's no way. And she said, no, there's not unless they let us in. And then I asked her if we were enforcing the vacant building rule of, I think it's $500 for the first year and $1,000 for every year after that. And I asked her 3 separate times, and she said, yes, it is. And then I asked her, well, it says in the code book that not only can you get in, but you're supposed to go in once a year when you get that fine, that fee for the building being empty. So I would have been embarrassed if someone had caught me not knowing what the code says when I claim I'm in charge of vacant buildings, because it's a very small, almost like just a page of rules. Didn't seem embarrassed by the fact. She was annoyed with me and told me if that was going to be my attitude, I had to talk to her boss. So she passes me on to Paul Falk, who gets on the phone, and the gist of his thing was, I asked, well, Paul, I also complained about all of the trash receptacles and the recycling bins. We have overflowing trash cans. In the summer, literally maggots are in the cans. The cans don't have their tops on them. The garbage is way up on top of them. They rip open, and I'm the one who's picking up the garbage on the street. And he told me, well, that was too much of a battle. And, well, you see, because there are renters. Well, I looked at the codes, and renters have nothing to do with the garbage cans. They're supposed to be out of sight, and it's supposed to be the landlord, the property owner's job to make sure they are, whether he has a tenant or it's him. So I ask this of you, that you have our interim city manager get together with Kathleen Maher, and that you take our city codes that are online, and you do us the courtesy of writing, color coding them for us. What are the codes that that our elected officials said are supposed to be there? What are the codes that our city workers have decided really they're not going to enforce? So I guess they're sort of an unelected branch of government that makes these decisions. And I'd also like to know what are the codes that are simply enforceable if the landlord would like to think about doing it, so that I'm real clear and I'm not wasting anybody's time, or my own. And it would be fair to the people that are looking to buy in the community, because when I came here, I did look up your codes, and I was really pleased with them. I'm like, great, $200 fine for leaving your garbage cans out, out in sight, all week long, terrific. But silly me, Paul Falk says that's too much of a battle. So, please help us. We don't exactly know, what to say from here. Are we supposed to make our comment now about this annexation?
Not yet.
Okay, I want to stay for that.
Thank you, Pat. Patrick was the last one who signed up. Anybody else wish to speak? If you do, please step up to the podium. Okay. All right, we have a public hearing. The public hearing is the annexation of Foggy Bottom. Steve?
Thank you.
Good evening. I'll introduce myself for the audience. My name is Steve Bachmiller. I'm the Hagerstown's City Government Zoning Administrator and Development Review Planner. I'm here representing the Department of Planning and Code Administration this evening. This is the first of two public hearings that we'll have this evening. Both are for annexations. The first one is annexation case 2018-01. We've assigned this the working title of Foggy Bottom Farm and Other Lands Annexation. Public hearing is to be held tonight on January 29th, 2019 at 7:00 p.m. On November 27th, the mayor and council introduced a resolution to annex 3 properties. They also adopted an annexation plan for the properties on November 27, 2018 as well. This annexation has been pursued pursuant to state code stipulations for city-initiated annexations, which permits the city to annex lands with the permission of the owners of 25% of the assessed value of real estate within the area to be annexed and permission of 25% of the registered voters of the subject area. Permission was obtained from the owners of 93.17% of the assessed value of the real estate and 100% of the registered voters. Approval is subject to a referendum provision. According to state law, legal advertisements were run in the local newspaper, in our case, the Herald Mail. Due to the size of this particular annexation, the law requires 4 advertisements, and they ran in the newspaper on Wednesday, December 12th, Saturday, December 22nd, Wednesday, January 2nd, 2019, and Friday, January 11th, 2019. You're also supposed to have at least 15 days after the last legal advertisement before you can have your hearing, and it's been at least 15 days since that last advertisement ran. This annexation involves 3 parcels of land. They include parcel 1587. This is Foggy Bottom Farm. This is a property owned by the city of Hagerstown. It totals 12.07 acres in land. These lands are improved with a dwelling, a barn, several outbuildings, and a cell tower. To give you some orientation for folks who drive up and down Eastern Boulevard, this is the one that is poorly disguised as a tree that's twice as tall as the trees that are around it. Also involved is parcel 1718. These are lands owned by Meritus, area totaling 78.18 acres, and these lands are unimproved. Parcel 1755, lands owned by Washington County, area totals 10.78 acres. These lands are used for a stormwater management facility. The area to be annexed is outlined in red on the map to the right on the screen that you are viewing. There are no developers agreements involved in this proposal. I'm going to step away from the podium for a minute and just give you a little bit more direct detail here. The 3 properties, it's a rather peculiar configuration of land. Foggy Bottom Farm is this property here. This is the one that's owned by the city of Hagerstown. It's across the Antietam Creek from the Light Business Park and Kiwanis Park. Then you have the Meritus property, which is the bulk of this area in red from basically here down. This area is also unimproved. And then the county's property is this very irregularly shaped piece that's in the middle, actually, of the Meritus property. So you have the city, Meritus, and then the county. And with a little bit of orientation here, this is the extension of Yale Drive through this area here. Dewey's house is located in this area here. Indian Lane is over in this area over here. And again, Kiwanis Park is this area in here. Proposed development. There's an extension of Yale Drive that has been constructed south of the annexation area. A proposed new road connecting Professional Court and Yale Drive, to be named Professional Boulevard, is under design by the county and is scheduled for construction in the near future. This road also includes a new bridge spanning Antietam Creek. There's no proposed development of the land other than the rights of way that we are aware of at this time. The city and the county have been in negotiation regarding the city participating in this development by completing widening of the entire length of existing Professional Court to be consistent with the new road connecting to it. The city has not yet committed to participate in this project. No development of the raw land is proposed. I mentioned that earlier. The Professional Boulevard will not be constructed to city standards, although county staff informs the city that the road will be built to AASHTO standards. The road will have curb and gutter and will have a mixed-use trail along one side of the road. Utilities such as streetlights serving the road will also not be completely compliant with city standards, as we have been informed. I'm going to step back again. The blue line that you see here is Yale Drive that's been constructed and connects over into Hagerstown Community College. There's also a stub of Professional Boulevard from this roundabout that's been completed. The area that's currently under design and would be constructed soon by the county is this alternating black and orange pattern roadway here. There's also a proposal to build a several $million bridge by the county across Antietam Creek at this point here. And then this purple area here is the area that's existing Professional Court. This is an existing city street that the discussions are involved in widening this out to be consistent with the county's proposed design for Professional Boulevard. Notice to relevant agencies pursuant to state code, the following bodies were provided notice of this hearing: the Maryland Department of Planning, Washington County Board of County Commissioners, Tri-County Council, and the Hagerstown Eastern Panhandle Metropolitan Planning Organization. Zoning consistency. Land's current, whenever the city annexes land, it has to assign a zoning classification per our zoning ordinance. We can't leave land uncovered by a particular zoning district. County lands, the properties are currently zoned ORI, which is a light industrial business park kind of hybrid zoning located in the county's zoning ordinance. And also the Foggy Bottom Farm property is zoned RT, residential transition. Lands currently zoned ORI in the county are proposed to be assigned to the IMU zoning district, the city's IMU district, which is again a commercial business park / light manufacturing type district upon inclusion in the city. Lands currently zoned RT in the county, which is Foggy Bottom Farm, are proposed to be assigned the AT zoning district with a potential landmark designation, since the house on the RT zone property is included on the county's historic properties inventory. It's the city's position that the proposed IMU and AT zoning districts for these properties are consistent with the county's ORI and RT districts. And I'll also point out, although I don't have it on this overhead, that on January 9th, the Planning Commission met to consider the proposed zoning assignments to these properties. And the Planning Commission recommends approval of the use of the IMU and RT zoning as proposed. State law states that for 5 years after the annexation, land cannot be developed for uses or densities substantially different from the existing county assigned zoning, unless the Board of County Commissioners provides express consent of the newly assigned district or approves of a development proposal. In 2015, the city amended its zoning ordinance to make adjustments to the list of all permitted uses in the IMU zoning district to be more consistent with the county's ORI district in anticipation of future annexation of this area. Everybody knows that this area is going to be developed over the next several years, and the thought is that we should make we knew we would be assigning it IMU zoning, so we adjusted our zone, the IMU's district, to be more consistent with the county's ORI to smooth that transition. Some inconsistencies do remain, but the two districts are approximately 80% consistent with one another. Staff has met with a representative emeritus regarding the zoning change, and some potential concerns regarding uses currently permitted in the ORI district are not permitted in the IMU district. Most of the uses discussed seem potentially reasonable to add to the IMU district and could be addressed through additional text amendment process. As of this date, no official response has been received from the county regarding the issue of zoning consistency. County staff presented the proposal to the Board of County Commissioners on January 15th, 2019, and city staff participated in the discussion. The board has provided a letter to the city stating that the county supports the annexation, however, has concerns with the annexation plan statement that public infrastructure, including the existing stormwater management facility and proposed road and bridge, would remain the property of the county. That is reflected in the letter from the President of the Board of County Commissioners, Jeff Klein, shown on the screen here, which I provided you all a copy of prior to beginning here, and I entered that into the record as an exhibit in this hearing. The board also determined to resume discussion of the issue of the proposed IMU zoning at its meeting on February 12th. And I will point out that that is more than 10 days after this hearing. Typically, you'll leave your record open for 10 days. They're not going to be discussing it again until February 12th. Regarding the issue of the county's approval of the city's assignment of the IMU district, this involves the express approval process where the county needs to provide, either determine that they're consistent and no approval is necessary, or that there is a need for them to expressly approve the city's zoning, or to not. There's basically three options. And in evaluating this as we move forward, it's been the city staff's position that any of those three options are acceptable for the annexation to move forward. Any disagreement as far as the county's assignment of express approval or not is really more of an issue between the property owners and the Board of County Commissioners. Infrastructure options, you are going to be visited this evening by representatives of the county government, and I'm sure this is going to be one of the issues on their plate to talk to you about. So we thought we would mention a few options if there's a decision to have a conversation on this topic. First, the city could just proceed as proposed, accepting no responsibility for the road, bridge, or stormwater management facility. Another option is to accept the road for city ownership with a county warranty recommended by the county's letter, subject to negotiation. And of course, that would be a certain amount of time where the county would warrant the condition of the road and repair it as necessary during that warranty period. Next is accept the bridge with a written commitment from the county to share in cost of repairs during periods of substantial renovation or reconstruction. Substantial renovation or reconstruction of a bridge is extraordinarily expensive and would be a very significant expenditure within the city's budget somewhere down the road. Probably won't need it for 20, 30 or more years, but nonetheless, the city needs to look into the future for that potential. And next is accept responsibility for the future of the stormwater management pond under the current terms of the MOU. This would require, and let me back up there, the county owns the stormwater management facility, but there is an MOU with Chief where they maintain it for a certain amount of time. It's a 10-year period after a certain date triggers, and I'm not 100% clear on exactly when that is. But as we understand it right now, although the county owns it, Chief does continue to maintain it. As far as that facility, there is the possibility of accepting responsibility for the future of the stormwater management pond under the current terms of the MOU. This would require Chief to maintain the pond for 10 years as agreed to with the county, Subdivision and development of land in the annexed area would be conditioned on the developer establishing a property owners association that assesses each lot owner a share of the cost of the maintenance. This would relieve the county, the long-term cost of maintaining it. And also, for the record, city engineer Rodney Tissue is here this evening. Next steps. I would like to submit for the record by reference the official file in this annexation case, as well as the certificates of legal advertisement that are already in the possession of the city clerk. The mayor and council may hold the record open for a stated period of time to accept additional written comment. The mayor and council may set a time at a future meeting to discuss this proposal, presumably later in February. Adoption is scheduled at this time for the mayor and council's regular meeting on February 26th, and if adopted on February 26th, the annexation will become effective 45 days later. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions from the council, please?
I have a procedural question. So you give the presentation, and then from there, I assume the public will be afforded the opportunity to speak, not in any specific order, unlike a BZA case. In other words, for or against an order, it doesn't really matter.
My understanding of the process is actually there are certain priorities. I believe the county has the opportunity to speak first if they choose to. And also the Maryland Office of Planning, which I don't believe they have sent any representatives here this evening.
I would doubt. So is procedurally, should the members of mayor and council address our questions to you, the staff, now, or are we afforded the opportunity to address those questions to you or other staff after the conclusion of the public comment?
I always open it up to questions from elected officials after testimony,
Okay.
either for or against. So,
Yeah, I know of nothing in the state code that sets specific procedural
No.
requirements that would supersede whatever you normally regularly do.
But now would be a good time if you have any comments you want to make prior, or any questions you have prior to any testimony, either for or against from the citizens, if you wish. That's why I offer that opportunity at this point.
I don't particularly want to do so and waste time where those folks may answer them
Okay.
anyway.
All right.
That's why I asked.
Good
But if
enough.
I do afterward, then I want to have the
That's
opportunity
fine.
to
Yep.
ask. Okay,
I'll be happy to come back up if you need me later.
okay.
Are we going, Steve, do you feel
Yes.
comfortable doing each of these separately, or you want to go on and move on to the creek, the Antietam Creek bed? portion?
Procedurally, we decided the appropriate route to go is to actually have two separate and distinct
Fine.
public hearings.
Okay.
So we'll handle the creek bed one completely separately after you take the testimony for this one. And given the differences in the circumstances, I would think my presentation would be mercifully shorter,
Okay, thank you.
certainly.
All right, now we'll have testimony against, and I know that there's one individual who has, first off, does the county wish to present now? Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. Andrew Eshelman. I'm the Director of Public Works for Washington County. I assume I'm representing the Board of Commissioners tonight on this issue. Some of the items that were in the letter I'd just like to touch on again. I would like to start off by saying that the county supports the annexation and the development of the property, that the growth of the tax base is of substantial benefit to the city and the county. We are proud to work cooperatively with the city in its economic development initiatives. As Steve has mentioned, though, we do have some concerns about the city's proposed intention to reject acceptance of the existing and future public infrastructure into the city inventory, even though that infrastructure will be constructed and paid for by the county, and if the annexation occurs within the municipal boundaries of the city of Hagerstown. Some things I'd just like to bring to light that are also in the letter, but for everyone to hear, that there are practical difficulties to a dual jurisdictional approach, and that by severing the road network from the jurisdiction can create some uncertainty when it comes time to develop the property, as far as development, who's responsible for ultimately the maintenance, who do you call when you need to get approvals done, The stormwater management pond was touched on. So in that situation, it's a regional pond that serves the larger community there. So if the county is to be responsible for that, but yet not have oversight and/or jurisdiction to make the improvements upstream that may be needed to correct problems that would materially impact drain into the pond. And lastly, these different requirements between what the city has and the county in terms of our development requirements could create confusion among developers, businesses, and citizens about the design, construction, and maintenance standards affecting their properties. And as was mentioned, the county is not asking the city to bear unnecessary risk and would be willing to sit down as far as any warranty for the road network construction and the bridge, if that would be acceptable. I will say, as far as the cost of the bridge and the future replacement and/or maintenance that may be entailed in the future, it would be classified what we call a major bridge. It's over 20-foot span. So it will be eligible for federal bridge replacement funds, assuming that program remains viable. The county and the city has partnered together on doing projects, most recently with the Burhan Boulevard Bridge projects. There was 3 that we teamed up. And county provided a lot of assistance, myself personally, with administering that project and then sharing the funds that are allocated to the county and then passed through the city to do that project. So there would be opportunities in the future potentially for maintenance and replacement costs, should that be an issue. So beyond that, if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those, but that's kind of the county's comments and positions as far as what our recommendations would be as far as annexation and looking to convey the road network as part of that.
Any questions from the council for the county?
I'd just like to thank the county. I think their support and their comments are more than reasonable, and it's a real good way to start with the new administration. And thank you very much.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Davoblis.
Mayor, thank you. Follow your instructions earlier and provide my correspondence to the city clerk. Good evening. My name is Jason Divelbus. Address is 11125 Bemisturfa Road in Greencastle. I'm here this evening in a representative capacity on behalf of Meritus Medical Center, Inc. Steve pointed out earlier that Meritus is the owner of the largest of the 3 parcels that are included. It's about 75 acres in size, forms about 75% of the overall 101 acres proposed for annexation. Despite the fact that Meritus owns 75% of the geographic area to be included in this annexation, no advance notice was provided to Meritus. Its consent was not requested and was not granted. For that reason and the others detailed in my letter to you, Meritus is opposed to this annexation proceeding. Now, that being said, I would like to point out that in 2016, myself, on behalf of Meritus, did have meetings with the city and actually submitted a proposal for the annexation of this 75 acres as well as additional lands, in total consisting of about 115 acres. A proposal was submitted to the city for the annexation of all of the undeveloped properties of Meritus at that time. That proposal was not followed up on. Meritus remains open and amenable to having discussions with the city about the annexation of its properties in this area, not just the 75 acres, but all the rest as well. And actually thinks that would be a more mutually beneficial way to go about the annexation proceeding than this or this particular proceeding this evening. Just real quick, the detailed points of opposition that are set forth in my letter. I want to begin with one that Steve identified earlier, and that is some of the specific components of the IMU zoning classification, which is recommended for the Meritus property. I met with Steve, pointed out some of the concerns that Meritus has, They basically center around the fact that there are several healthcare-related uses that are not permitted in the IMU zoning district. There are then a set of additional uses that are only permitted in the context of a mixed-use building. Meredith's preference obviously would be if the IMU zoning is destined for this property that some of those changes be made to the IMU zoning so it permits a full spectrum of healthcare-related uses. Second, Steve also pointed out that as we stand here this evening, we do not have this express approval from the county, which means whether there will or will not be a 5-year restriction on this property is unknown. And because that is unknown, that's an additional concern that Meredith has with this proceeding. That's a material point to the Meredith folks, even though it may not be to the city, as illustrated by Steve's comments. And lastly, and perhaps more importantly, I want to point out that, Steve correctly recited that the Maryland Code requires at least consent from at least 25% of the assessed value of the property within the area to be annexed. But there is a case that was decided in 1974 that says that publicly owned properties cannot be included within the properties that vote to meet that 25% threshold. The case pretty clearly says that tax-exempt parcels, which will not bear the burden of city taxation, are not to be included when determining whether that minimum 25% threshold has been met. And in this case, the only property that has been counted to meet the 25% threshold is in fact the city's property. So for those reasons, Meredith Medical Center would like to go on record as being opposed to the annexation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Anybody else to testify against the annexation?
I don't know about all the specifics of it. I just know that as someone who's living in the Old Town section of Hagerstown, you got a lot of nerve reaching out to take in more property when you can't seem to take care of what we already have. We are the third poorest city in Maryland. And to give the devil his due, I did look at the other two. They were less than 10,000 in population. We're just over 40,000. But we beat Baltimore, who has 15 times the population we have by 2 spaces. I can't imagine anybody's property wanting to be in or near the city when they already have a county address. It's much better for the people around that neighborhood that have that buffer to stay away from the city. And I think it's kind of galling. We can't get our streets clean. We don't have people to clean our sidewalks, and we're looking at bringing in more land. So I vote no. I think it's a really bad idea. I think you should get your act together and take care of what you have under your belt already.
Thank you, Patrick. Anybody else against? Anybody in favor of annexation of this property? Please speak. Come to the podium and speak now. Okay, seeing none, Steve, you want to close us out?
Can I?
Hang on, you get your chance. Hang on a second.
Just wanted to make sure any questions that may remain be asked. Otherwise, it would be up to you all to close the hearing or leave the record open for 10 days. I've already entered the file and the legal advertisement into the record, so that's already covered.
Okay, any questions from council?
Yeah. So I have a couple, and the first, I'll go ahead and address Mr. Davalbus's 3 comments. The first is a basic question, and obviously I have with me this evening that original proposal that was made back in 2016 that you referenced. And so I have a very simple question: is to what degree this evening is it free to allude to? Was that submitted in any form of confidence?
I am not aware of that, and I would defer actually to Mr. Divalbus, seeing that he wrote the letter. He would probably be the best person to answer that question.
I don't think there's any issue with sharing it.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I don't know that you really want to get a conversation this evening. I mean,
Yes, we do.
It may not be the most appropriate opportunity, but
Okay.
if you'd like to go.
Um,
It's hard to-
The second is the reference to the 5 years and, you know, and the zoning issue and as it applies to the 5 years. But currently, there's no road on the property referenced?
That is correct.
There's no utilities on the property?
Not that I am aware of,
There's no plan of development submitted for the property?
not yet.
So, you know, we reference 5 years. I mean, the average time that it takes for a development to reach, to go from proposal to actual construction, 6 to 10 years, probably, in most cases. You know, that's assuming that you can meet all of those local and state and federal regulatory procedures. That's assuming that you can line up the
Well, Patrick,
infrastructure.
pardon me, Kristen. Patrick, please don't leave. Could you stay until I have a chance to talk to you after the meeting? We only need a couple more minutes.
see you, but you know, I have so little faith in what's been going on, so I'm kind of done. I came to do my civic duty.
Thank you for your civic duty then, Patrick.
So I understand the 5-year concern, but the reality is, you know, whether the county determines it, you know, express or consistent or not, I don't know if they use that term anymore, the reality is, you know, the land isn't developing in the 5 years that's referenced by that statement of opposition this evening. And then the other item I just want to clarify for the public, the Foggy Bottom property also referenced is occupied by 2 private citizens who, you know, occupy that property for private purposes, and then a part of which is occupied for private commercial purposes. So it is a privately used property. But getting back to the first comment as it alluded to the 2016 proposal, and I think this speaks a little bit to the letter we got from the county. And I must admit, I am a bit surprised, you know, that the county had the capacity to iterate in rather lengthy detail its position on the development, the infrastructure, the juxtaposition of how that would play out for future development and all those associated things, but not the ability to weigh in, you know, completely on the express approval. And so I find that to be a bit piecemeal in its approach. But the reality is, you know, we can take our recently adopted MS4 plans, and you know, any citizen that would look at that would understand very simply that publicly owned infrastructure exists both inside and outside of jurisdictional boundaries and has for eternity. And therefore, you know, we don't turn our water and sewer lines, you know, in their totality over to the county when they happen to leave the city jurisdiction. In fact, we provide water service to more folks outside of the city on lines that we own than inside of the city. But we don't turn those lines over to the county to avoid this apparent confusion the developer may have over its ability to connect to them. People drive down Northern Avenue every day, and there's land outside of the city jurisdiction on one side and land inside of the city jurisdiction on the other. The county hasn't offered to turn over Dowd Park because folks are confused whether it's a city or county park behind South High. And so this notion that folks would be, you know, too confused of this jurisdictional difference of infrastructure, it just doesn't seem to hold weight when you apply it to the historical nature in which development has occurred in this and pretty much every other community across the state. And to that effect, you know, some of the folks in this body were not here, you know, when we had the only real public discussion that I can recall that sort of flirted with this particular item was here in this room. There were various number of folks here, one of which was the then executive director of, or the CEO, or whatever you call it, of Meritus. And, you know, you can go back and you can look at that. But I can tell you, you know, when we talk about, that was a couple of years ago, we talk about, you know, sitting down, you know, and negotiating through the items. I can tell you in that meeting that the tone and the disposition used by that individual, I found to be a bit inflammatory of, you know, the characterization of having that conversation, and the clear opposition in the demeanor of those comments, and wanting to. And, you know, for our citizens, the citizens of this city out there, and it's unfortunate the gentleman left, because when you go back and you look at that, and all of the different things that go along with the possibility, you know, of annexation and you know, expansion of the city boundaries, which happens all the time. And I went back and I looked at the numbers, you know, based on what was proposed. I mean, the city stands to lose as growth occurs in this eastern area of the county. When you go back and you look at that documentation, by my estimation, anywhere from about $500,000 a year to $2 million a year in lost revenue for at least more than a decade's period of time, in which we were otherwise going to still have to extend the availability of city services. I can't tell you how many times that has happened for decades in this county, and speaks to the very position that the last gentleman that spoke references in our ability to grow and thrive. And so, you know, the city is simply doing what other municipalities across the state naturally do, which is grow, which is annex and grow as development grows. I mean, the state directive clearly says municipalities are intended to be the urban services provider, and that growth is expected to occur around and within those municipal jurisdictions. And so, you know, when I go back and look at those numbers, and then I went back to that reference just to make sure that I wasn't way off base. My estimation, and let's just take the hospital itself, you know, a tax-exempt entity that's located, you know, in this area just beyond the current annexation before us. And my estimation, you know, 4 officers assigned to the hospital probably be about $360,000 at, you know, $90,000. And I went back and looked at the article from last April, where, if folks here recall, the county sheriff's department entered into agreement with the hospital for a 5-year negotiated agreement of $339,000. You know, when you look at having to take over the road infrastructure, my estimation was about $150,000. And so, you know, it's nice for folks out there to think, okay, city, well, you know, you should take over or, you know, obligation of all of these things. But then you read a proposal dated at that time that says, very frankly and very plainly, but we want exempted from our portion of the costs associated with it for a fairly extensive period of time. And I don't think that that's the tenet of how municipalities are you know, expected and determined to grow as entities with these types of measures. And so I don't find this to be any unnatural process in doing so. What I find unnatural is that the expectation is that a municipality would extend its services without doing so, or grow into those areas without the expected fair share revenue return in doing so. And this annexation doesn't really do anything but proceed with that natural progression of things.
Anybody else on the council? Any questions for Steve?
I'd just like to add one point to build on Councilman Alshire's points as well, is that the city can only annex land to which it is currently adjacent. There are lands out there that are also ripe for development ultimately that the city is not currently adjacent to, plus there's other properties that have been developed with what are called pre-annexation agreements. In other words, in order to get the city's utilities, they had to sign an agreement and include it in the land records saying that should the city grow to their boundaries at some point, they will not object to annexation. So this really goes beyond this particular annexation. It has almost like a domino kind of effect. And this is the property that happens to be adjacent to the city right now. And also regarding the issue of the two county issues, the one of the infrastructure and the zoning, the reason why there was a decision made on one and not the others, because they were actually handled as two separate agenda issues with the county government, with two different branches of the county government staffing the discussions. Mr. Eshelman handled the conversation with the infrastructure, and they came to conclusions on that within the context of that meeting. The county planning staff with their director, Mr. Goodrich, led the discussion regarding the zoning. That got a bit more complex, and they just decided to continue the conversation until their next available meeting on February 12th.
All right. Anything else? Okay. Nothing else, then we'll close this public meeting. We will keep the record open, and we will keep it open until February the 15th, which gives the county plenty of time on February 12th to discuss this, and then we can discuss it on February 19th. I'm sure we'll have some kind of word from them prior to February 19th. All right, moving on to the next one then is the annexation of Antietam Creek bed. Go ahead,
Okay.
Steve.
This is annexation file A 2018-02. It's a public hearing for the annexation of an area that we have given the working title, the Antietam Creek bed. I'm going to step over to the screen and just give everyone a little bit of orientation. This is Foggy Bottom Farm here with a very, very tall artificial tree located over in this area here. This is Kiwanis Park. This is Light Business Park. Indian Lane is over in this area here. The Sailor House, which is located in Kiwanis Park, is located right about here. If you step out on the front porch of the Sailor House and make a left or turn left, you can look straight up the Antietam Creek. It's basically that creek bed that it is the area that is subject to this annexation. It's this area located right in here. The mayor and council introduced a resolution to annex unowned land in the amount of 1.47 acres on November 27th, 2018. Also on the same date, a annexation plan for this area was adopted by the mayor and council that date. The purpose of this annexation is to regularize the city boundary should annexation case A 2018-01 be approved. Otherwise, this area would be a narrow sliver of county jurisdiction wedged between two properties that will be within the city. No one owns or resides in the area to be annexed, and approval is subject to a referendum provision. And I'll speak louder rather than struggle with the microphone again. It's a very long, narrow piece. This black line here is the current city boundary. This is the proposed annexation. The proposed annexation takes effect. We're going to have this strip of land, which is actually county jurisdiction, remaining jutting into essentially the municipal map of the city. So it makes sense to regularize the boundaries, close that off, and annex that area as well. The annexation involves 1.47 acres of area that is located just east of the Sailor House in Kiwanis Park. Based on survey research of adjacent properties, it appears as no part of a recorded lot or parcel and is unowned. This is likely due to imperfections in surveys of the adjacent properties in the 19th and early 20th centuries, excuse me, when surveyors called out the center of the creek or one of the banks of the creek as a boundary. The surveys don't match up, falling short of the adjacent properties. This results in a no man's land that is unowned, unused, untaxed, and unrecorded in the land records. Much of the area to be annexed is within the actual creek itself. Some lands along the bank are also included, but these are within the floodplain and floodway. There are no improvements, and the area can only be accessed by adjacent properties or navigating the creek. This hearing was advertised in the Herald Mail 4 times pursuant to Maryland state law with display advertisements and maps which appeared on the following dates: December 12th, December 22nd, January 2nd, 2019, and Friday, January 11th, 2019. Given the size of this area, state law actually only requires 2 legal advertisements, but since we were running the other ones parallel, we ran 4 for this one as well. Excuse me. Also, the state law requires that this hearing be held at least 15 days after the running of the last advertisement, which we also comply with as well this evening. Notice to relevant agencies pursuant to state code, the following bodies were provided with notice of this hearing: the Maryland Department of Planning, Washington County Board of County Commissioners, Tri-County Council, Hagerstown Eastern Panhandle Metropolitan Planning Organization. Regarding the issue of zoning consistency, again, I'll refer back to all lands that the city annexed has to receive or be applied to a zoning district regardless of whether or not it can or will be developed. The area is currently RT in the county and is proposed to be assigned to the AT zoning district. This is essentially the same, well, it is the same as what is being assigned to the adjacent Foggy Bottom Farm and the other annexation. It's the city's position that the proposed AT zoning is consistent with the county's RT districts. State law requires that for 5 years after annexation, land cannot be developed for uses or densities substantially different from the existing county assigned zoning unless the Board of County Commissioners provides express consent to the newly assigned district or approves of a development proposal. Zoning as applied to this case is mostly academic since the creek, floodplain, and topography and undetermined ownership of the area preclude just about any form of development. County staff presented the proposal to the Board of County Commissioners on January 15th, and the city staff participated in that discussion. The Board of County Commissioners has provided no official response to this annexation proposal. The board also determined that to resume discussion on the issue of the proposed zoning for this annexation and the Foggy Bottom Farm and other lands annexation at its meeting on February 12th. I'll also note for the record that the Hagerstown Planning Commission met and considered the proposed zoning for this annexation and concurs with what has already been put forward in the proposal and recommends approval of assigning AT zoning to this area. Staff submits by reference the official file in the annexation case as well as the certificates of legal advertisement. The certificates for legal advertisement are already in possession of the city clerk. Mayor and council may hold the record open for a stated period of time to accept additional written comment. Mayor and council may set a time for a future meeting to discuss this proposal later in February. There is an adoption for this scheduled for February 26th at your regular meeting on that date. And if adopted on February 26th, the annexation will become effective 45 days later in mid-April. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does the county wish to testify? Okay. Anyone who wishes to testify against this annexation? Anybody for this annexation?
Yes. My name is Jason Divelbus. My name and address are already on the record. This annexation makes sense. The annexation of this property as well as the city-owned property directly across the creek there make perfect sense. Those are the types of annexations that happen all the time. The type of annexations that occur without the consent of the property owner do not happen all the time and are not nearly as acceptable as this type of annexation. So I support this.
Thank you, Jason. Anybody else? Okay, Steve. Any questions from council?
No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Keep the record open again on this one, the same length of time, Don, until the 15th. All righty. City administrator comments.
A few minor items for all city employees. Human Resources has forwarded the wellness survey. Please have those completed by February. They're very important for the Human Resources group. Congratulations to Chief Kiefer and HPD staff for handling a myriad of issues last week. Kudos to them. Congratulations to Rick's Cafe for the 5th year anniversary. And thank you and safe travels to the council and for staff who are traveling to Annapolis tomorrow for the sessions. Thank you.
Thank you. Council comments, Mr. Alshak?
I don't have anything.
Ms. Jeffrey? Nothing. Ms. Bell?
I have a lot.
A lot, can I come back to you?
No. So to all you young men who are here today, I hope if you learned anything over this last hour and 15 minutes, is that growing up is not all it's cracked up to be. So like stay young as long as possible. Mike, what a first meeting for you to come to, or first open session, but thank you for being here. And also thank you to staff. I know this transition over the last couple of weeks, I'm sure has been uncomfortable, but we've gotten a lot of good feedback and staff really seems motivated, and we just appreciate the transition. So thank you. On a couple other notes, I wanted to talk about the opioid epidemic. I'm sure no one is surprised there. But I just got a chart in today, 29 days into 2019, and we, as in Washington County, have had 47 overdoses, 4 of which were fatal. 47 overdoses in 29 days, 4 of which were fatal. So a lot of times I hear people say, oh, all she talks about is the drug epidemic, or I wish she would focus on something other than the drug epidemic. So I'm going to give my point of view again regarding this. This is not just the people that are overdosing on the street that this is affecting. When you talk about citizen complaints, trash is one of them, but crime is always one of them. Almost all of our petty crime is somehow tied in with drugs. It's affecting our quality of life. It's affecting economic development. It's affecting our school system. Something that you may not know is that we are 3rd in the state with substance-exposed newborns. So if you have an ill opinion of the addict, that's fine. I don't agree with it, but okay. You can't have an ill opinion about the kids that are being born addicted. I mean, this is affecting everything. So until we can fix this, we're going to continue, Hagerstown, Washington County, Maryland, the United States of America is going to continue having problems. So for the people that say they wish I would focus on something else, I am focusing on something else. I'm focusing on improving our community, improving the health of our community. And I'm going to stay passionate about this because 47 overdoses in 29 days is not acceptable. And if you think that's bad, it's going to get worse if we don't start educating our kids. We need Washington County Public Schools to come to the table. We need to be educating kids. Starting in elementary school, we have to. You can't stop an epidemic if we're not talking to kids before it starts. You know, I was at the health department last week, and the health officer was saying how they used to pull teeth there. And he said that's all they did. It was constantly, people were coming in, they're pulling teeth, they're pulling teeth, they're pulling teeth. Finally, they got to a point where they were like, oh my God, we can't continue to pull teeth. We have to figure out a way to educate people on how to better take care of their oral health. I mean, this is that exact same thing. We can't continue to pull teeth. We got to fix it before it starts and start preventing it from getting to where we're at right now. It's affecting our police, our fire, their morale. It's affecting our hospital. It's affecting the homeless population. You know, not all of them are addicts, but a large population of them have mental health and addiction issues. So if you're frustrated with the crime, if you're frustrated with the homeless people, if you're saying the city of Hagerstown is doing nothing about this, I'm trying. We're all trying. And we have to come together as a community and stop looking at these people as just another junkie, because it's our friends, it's our family. I appreciate your Washington Goes Purple shirt out there today. Thank you. But that report today rattled me. I'm shaking talking about it. 47 overdoses, 4 fatal in the first 29 days of 2019 is just unheard of. So I hope that the people who are not looking at it as a big picture start looking at it as a big picture, because we need your support. We need to be talking to the kids. We need to start preventing. We need to start calling the governor to the carpet, asking where all the money's going, why it's not going into education. And those are tough conversations, but we need to have them. And I am proud and ready to lead the way. So there's that. Regarding WDVM, Lou, you are a legend. I appreciate you being here. Watched you my whole life. I have a great deal amount of respect for you. You know, you've gotten no comment out of us because it's put us in a very difficult position. You're a privately owned business. Antietam Cable is a privately owned business. And who am I to get involved in a privately owned business dispute? But I have to say, this has been a very frustrating experience for us, and I'm sure for you, and I'm sure for the citizens. But demanding that reporters ask us over and over and over and over again after we've said no comment puts us in a difficult position. Showing up at our meetings and having staff sit there and whether that was supposed to be a show of support or a show of intimidation, it didn't come across very good. It didn't. And then the promoting of the videos on Facebook, giving our telephone number, we are the city of Hagerstown. You are a privately owned business. I'm a privately owned business owner. If I have a problem in my own business, I'm not going to say call Mayor Bob and have him advocate for me. That was very frustrating for us. And to go on hiding the comments that people were making, why? As a news organization, transparency is important. And hiding comments, you have to understand, it left a bad taste in my mouth. I don't think it was the right approach. I appreciate everything you do for your community. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate Antietam Cable being here. But that approach, it just put us in a very difficult position. And I wish it wouldn't have went down like that. I think, you know, all parties should come to the table if that's what you want, but the way it was handled, I'm sorry, I don't agree with it. And again, I appreciate what you do for our community, but to put it on us, I don't understand that at all. Lastly, and then I'm done, I promise. I put a post on Facebook, and I know Shelley shared it, and I know a lot of us feel the same way. If I haven't made it clear over my 2 years and 3 months in office that I am accessible, my personal telephone number, which is public on every website, is 301-991-6773. If there's an issue within the city of Hagerstown that you feel you have to say, I wonder if the city knows, or I wonder why the city council hasn't, or I wonder why they have, if you need to ask that question, we may just not know. Please reach out to me. If there's a pothole in your community, I use that all the time. People say, oh, there's a pothole over here. I may not have gone down that street that day. I may not know to email Rodney and ask about it. Or if there is an issue that you feel needs advocated for, or something you don't agree with a decision you made, but you don't really understand why we made it, please reach out to me. You know, I work, I do this, I live in the South End, my office is in the South End. There may be things going on in the North End or the West End that I have no idea about. I'm here to help. I live here, I'm raising my child here, my parents are retiring here. I'm just a normal person like everyone else. So I want to help. I didn't do this for any other reason other than I love Hagerstown. If there's a way that I can help, or a voice that is not being heard, or a position that you feel needs to be heard, I'm available all the time. I think we all are. Well, I know we all are, but please reach out instead of just assuming that it's city government against you, because it's not at all. At the end of the day, I'm just an average citizen as well that was blessed enough to be in this position. So, thank you.
Mr. Bessler.
Thank you. I just have two things. One, following up with what Emily said on a different note with regards to the WDVM issue. I'm not going to discuss yesterday. What I will say is I believe you folks came in tonight with a very reasonable proposal to us, which was very different than the council has been asked before. Your request tonight was, will you please ask the parties to get back to the table? And I think that is an appropriate request. I agree with Emily that we can't get into, especially when we're dealing with negotiations that aren't taking place in our backyard here. As you all know, you've made it clear to us, you're sort of cut out of it to begin with. But you are absolutely correct that it is a positive thing for everybody in our community to have greater access to your TV station. Of that, there is no doubt. And to the degree that you're asking at least me to get involved in requesting the parties to sit at the table and come to some resolution or explain why they won't, I think that's reasonable, and I'm more than happy to do so. And I would just note that any old man who's on the radio at 5 a.m. in the morning who's still sitting at a city council meeting at 8:30 has a screw loose, and that's, I guess, why we're all known as Screwy Louie. Thank you, Lou. Thank you. And the last thing I want to say is, you know, on the way here tonight, I passed by our staff out there salting our streets that are going to need it tonight, and I want to commend them and thank them for their work tonight. Thank you.
Ms. Mack.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
I have a couple real quick things. Great time this morning at Paramount Elementary. talking to fourth graders about if I were mayor. It's a great essay contest. I look forward to reading all the submissions every year and then being able to choose some lucky winners locally here who get to come up and actually preside over a meeting, the last meeting, voting session in May. I do want to say one thing. I know that Mark Cram and I go way back, many years. Very close. Every time he calls, I answer. I took a phone call on January the 11th from Andy Wyatt, asking me to make a phone call. And I told him that I would. And as soon as I hung up from the phone call with Andy, I made that phone call. That's all I can do. I, as the mayor of the city of Hagerstown, as Bob Rucci, as a citizen, I got nothing in this contract dispute or lack of negotiations on contracts between two private business entities. I just don't. I don't get involved in that in other business entities, and I won't do it here. I made a phone call. I promised that I would, and I keep my word, and I made that phone call. That's all I can do. I certainly am not going to discuss comments that were made by either entity on the phone with me or in private meetings with me. Again, that's between two private entities. And hopefully they can find a way to pull it together and to come to a resolution on this issue. And when they do, I'll celebrate it with them because it'll be a good thing for our community. But it's not going to come from me trying to demand people to do things. That's not my position. So, moving on, we are going to adopt the minutes. We have a new motion. Hope you all got it.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move for the approval of minutes as presented for mayor and council meetings held on September 13, December 4, December 11, and December 18th, all 2018.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move that all the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Removal from the, this is what we're doing this evening on this issue. I propose that we're removing from the table the approval resolution advising parking facility rates and fees. We'll have a motion. We'll have a second. And then we will vote on the motion, which will die. Okay, will not pass. All right, and that takes care, that cleans that off legislatively. Fair enough, you understand? Removal from the table, approval resolution advising parking facilities and rates and fees.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move to remove from the table the approval of resolution revising parking facilities, rates, and fees. The motion was tabled on December 18th, 2018.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So now we need a motion to approve the resolution from December 18th. Donna, do we have that in here? The original motion?
Yes.
think
Mr.
it's
Mayor,
still-
hereby move for mayor and council approval of a resolution approving specific revisions to the schedule of parking facilities, rates, and fees effective January 1, 2019. Whereas herein noted per the schedule, any rate not specifically addressed in the attached resolution will be as approved in resolution R 1827 passed on June 26, 2018.
That's it. Get a second?
Second.
Second by Shelley. Any discussion?
So, we want to vote against this?
Vote against this one, correct. Yes.
I'm with you.
All right.
Could've just not
Pains me to say that, but yes.
sit on the table forever.
All in favor? All opposed?
Aye.
Motion fails. So now we go to
was the.
Introdu- Under new, okay, all right. Introduction of an ordinance for changes in the City of Hagerstown Police and Fire Employees Retirement Plan. Amendment 13 to the plan.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move to introduce the ordinance for the following changes to the Police and Fire Retirement Plan effective March 28, 2019. 1, add to the definition of covered employee the job classifications police officer trainee and police cadet. Number 2, job classifications of police officer trainee and police cadet will not be eligible for the line of duty disability until they become a sworn officer.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. A resolution revising parking facilities rates and fees.
Mr. Mayor, we move the mayor and council approve a resolution approving specific revision to the schedule of parking facilities, rates, and fees effective February 1, 2019, or as herein noted per the schedule, any rate not specifically addressed in the attached resolution will be as approved on Resolution R 1827, passed on June 26, 2018.
Second?
Discussion?
Just for clarification,
If we do not discuss business rates that are effective on July 1st of 2019, they will go into effect July 1st of 2019.
so,
Right.
so June 26th, that was the meeting where we did away with the business discounts.
Right. So if we do not discuss and change that wording or that resolution or amend that resolution by July 1st of
Right.
2019, those rates will increase.
We have time to make adjustments to that.
Yes, we do. We should
Yeah.
discuss that during the budget discussions.
Okay.
That's what I'd like
We all
to
clear?
adjust them.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Motion
No.
carries.
That was okay.
I'm sorry?
Go on.
You were no?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So 4-1.
yeah.
Okay. Now I'm really confused.
Me
All right.
too.
Approval resolution, execution of a lease agreement for the portion of the City of Hagerstown property known as Borough Box, located at 60 West Washington Street, Hagerstown, Maryland.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move that the mayor and city council approve the attached resolution authorizing the execution of a lease agreement for a portion of the City of Hagerstown property known as Borough Box, located at 60 West Washington Street in Hagerstown, Maryland. The lease will be between the City of Hagerstown and ATR Advantage and shall be in effect from February 1, 2019 to January 31, 2020.
Second?
Discussion.
I'm just curious, does anybody know whatever happened to the doctoral project that was gonna be there?
No.
No.
Okay.
The what project?
Remember, we have somebody who's doing his PhD?
It's a
PhD
PhD project. and it was a
dissertation.
Oh, yeah.
Presentation.
Yeah.
Of the,
And I've never seen
Gonna have some
anything.
mark work in the front.
Just really quick, it was a temporary art exhibition, so it
So it
did
was
go
up and down? We just
up and
missed it.
down.
Oh, okay.
Son of a gun. Okay,
That was
thank you.
quick, wink your eye, you know.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of a fireworks schedule for the Hagerstown Suns for 2019.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move that mayor and council approve 3 regular season fireworks shows after Hagerstown Suns baseball games on 6/14/19, 7/3/19, and 8/23/19 during the 2019 season, and that the mayor and council's approval will exempt these shows from the City of Hagerstown's noise ordinance under Section 155-5 of the Code of the City of Hagerstown.
second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of city funding support for Discovery Station, Discovery Town.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the mayor and council approval of $7,500 in city funding to support the Discovery Station's Discovery Town project. The Discovery Station sent a request to mayor and council on September 7, 2018, and requested funding for its new learning area project. The $7,500 will be paid over a 3-year period as follows. FY19, $2,500 from General Fund Agency Contribution, unspecified in February 2019. FY20, $2,500 from General Fund Agency Contribution, unspecified in July 2019. FY21, $2,500 from General Fund Agency Contribution, unspecified in July 2020.
Second.
Discussion.
I'd just like to thank Brittany, who's here tonight. You are, if we could clone you, it would be amazing, because you are a huge cheerleader for Hagerstown, and what you've done to the Discovery Station is just incredible. So thank you.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of the Utilities Department electric distribution transformer purchase for the remainder of fiscal year 2019.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, we move that the mayor and city council approve expenditures for electric distribution transformers of varying types and sizes for the purpose of reliable operation and maintenance of the electric distribution system. This approval will provide for the purchase of electric distribution transformers on an as-needed basis, as identified by the department through the remainder of fiscal year 2019. The fiscal year budget amount of $125,000 is based on historical expenditures. Actual expenditures will be determined by unit cost and the actual total quantities of each unit required each year based on customer needs, identified loadings issues, and equipment failures. The actual cost of each unit may vary each quarter based on the fluctuation of metal values as determined by the manufacturer. City of Hagerstown competitively bid B1638.18 for electric distribution transformers and awarded to National Transformer Sales. This contract is valid through June 30, 2019.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Approval of memorandum of understanding, Washington County Police Academy.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for mayor and council approval of a memorandum of understanding with the Washington County Sheriff's Department and the Hagerstown Community College for the purposes of establishing a joint Washington County Police Academy. This MOU will terminate and replace the previously entered into MOU dated December 19, 2018. The term of this agreement shall be for a period of 1 year from January 29, 2019 through December 31st, 2019, and will automatically renew unless otherwise terminated, set forth hereinafter.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of a license agreement for temporary installation of public art.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move to approve a license agreement between the City of Hagerstown and Scott Lebedo for the temporary art installation in the public right-of-way on the northwest corner of Maryland Avenue and Downsville Road. The installation shall take place on March 22nd, 2019, and the exhibit shall be removed on March 24th, 2019.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.